Hello and welcome back to the Fasting Focused Lifestyle Podcast. Yeah, it's been a hot minute since we've had some recent podcast episodes, but not to worry. I am back. I am ready with a list of podcast episodes to get into further detail with you to help you get to where you want to be permanently for the rest of your life with fasting as a lifestyle modality tool. Because as I always say, I believe in you, even if you don't. This week, we're going to get into a podcast topic that I've briefly covered in previous episodes, but I'm going to encourage you and remind you to please stop obsessing over food. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Fasting Focused Lifestyle Podcast, where each week I will be discussing all things fasting and how it can become the most valuable tool in your personal toolkit so that you can live a long, healthy, and meaningful life. I'm your host, Vicki Sharon, and thank you for joining me. So again, I'm going to encourage you, please stop obsessing over food. I see this very often in the different groups that I'm in where this expectation that our food choices have to be measured up to a list, to specific measurements and counting and metrics and apps and documenting. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but to me, just thinking about that stresses me out and makes me it makes my skin, it's just not a good feeling. It doesn't sound like a good time. It doesn't sound like something I want to do or honestly would encourage others to do on their journey, because that limiting headspace and mindset you may come into starting a protocol, a program, products, whatever kind of metrics you feel you have to measure up. You may come in with the best intentions, but I'm telling you, that's going to be very short-lived in the long-term scheme of things, because this overly strict thought, belief, mindset kind of regimen, if you're setting that up for yourself, it's going to be so much harder to stick to it long-term. Because if you think of this, like I've talked about this before, and how balance and moderation is so important. So I think about this kind of spectrum, this line, where on one end of this line is just utter and complete freedom and choice, having whatever you want without, self-imposed limitations or even conscious, common sense sort of choices, and just whatever. Oh, I'm just going with your impulses, and almost like an inner child let loose inside a grocery store to just choose whatever they want, right? It's not exactly where we want to be. But if you think on the opposite end of that, you have utter chaos. To me, that would be utter chaos of overly strict, measured to a T, written down strict. I imagine these measuring cups with exact amount of cooked rice, broccoli. Just, it sounds miserable. Both ends of the spectrum to me sound absolutely miserable. But instead, there is this really fluid, flexible space that can exist in the middle of this. And this is what I've done myself. This is what I encourage others, and have seen success in others as well. And I'm going to encourage the same to you. So this obsession over our food choices with, being so afraid and avoidant with our thoughts and feelings and belief, and, seeing that, permissible, allowable, gluttony of letting the inner child, that's what I imagine in my mind, letting the inner child run free with an unlimited debit card in the grocery store, going on a binge fest. Obviously, we don't want that. Obviously, this is where common sense comes in. Obviously, we don't want, a full-on binge fest of, unhinged choices, and that's crazy. That would send us way far back in our choices. But we need to also remember that by thinking that it has to be so strict and so limiting and so fixated on this punishment, right or wrong, good or bad kind of mentality towards our food choices, is hurting us as well, that we can't be so far in either direction, and that we need to be okay with this fluid, flexible area in the middle. And yeah, some days it's going to be seemingly like a little bit regimented, and it should, and see, I say this with like loose finger quotes, it should have some sort of, structure to it, but not so much where we're thinking negatively about our journey, where we're thinking that we are punishing ourselves because we were bad over the weekend, and on Monday we have to tighten up and it has to look like this. That's not going to get you there. Just like that mentality of limit, restrict, limit, restrict. That's a punishment. That's a negative aspect of a journey that will limit your ability to be successful. And if you follow Dr. Fung, if you've heard and read, the Obesity Code, the Complete Guide to Fasting, many other resources and videos and content that he's put out there, he says very plainly for folks, there is no need to count your calories. As a caveat to that, of course, as I said before, with that kind of spectrum of food choices, I'm not going to encourage you to go from, okay, Vicky said not to count my calories, Dr. Fung said not to count my calories, so we're just going to go, again, binge fest. You're not a child unhinged in a grocery store. So please don't give yourself permission in that aspect. What I am going to encourage you is to think about things in a sometimes all the time kind of component. And this is where a lot more introspection can happen, and why I highly, highly advocate for this check-in process with ourselves. And, I can talk about that in another episode about like, what does checking in with yourself mean? We can talk about that in another episode, but checking in with yourself to me is keeping yourself in check, keeping yourself from going too far to that unhinged child in the grocery store to go on a binge fest, and keeping yourself away from that overly restrictive, like workout, food, measuring aholic, counter obsessor. So we can't go too far in either directions. And we need to stay in that squishy, happy place in the middle. And yeah, there's going to be some days where it may feel kind of like we're creeping towards that unhinged toddler in a grocery store binge fest. But you can check yourself before you go too far in that direction, because I think we need to have moments where we allow these pleasure moments. And psychologically, if we limit and remove that entirely, if that's been a huge component of who you were as an emotional eater, like fellow emotional eaters out there, I got you. If that was a big part of who you were in the past, and you're trying to build this like metaphorical wall of like, I'm never going back there again. Body's going to fight it. It's going to be hard. Your body's going to fight it. If you put too much strict limiting kind of rules and protocols for yourself, you're going to be back to, old self quicker than you probably realize. And there's so much psychology and references that'll back me up on that. So if you're interested to go in that, go dig a little bit deeper into the psychology of it. But I'm telling you, if you go too far in either direction, it's harder to go back. So letting the both coexist can happen, but it takes a lot of that checking in with yourself. What does self-compassion look like to you? Does that mean that you're going to allow yourself to have the sometimes and all the time food? Great. But I think the attention of making those food modifications should come a lot more naturally on this journey, and a lot more commonsensically. And I know that sounds like, what? Like way kind of too abstract out there. But I want you to consider this. I feel the feels. I'm feeling the feelies. A lot of folks who identify as emotional eaters, and emotional eating, struggles in their past, in their history. A lot of that does stem from childhood, from adolescence, from young adulthood. Maybe if it's even something that you're struggling with currently. And a lot of times it comes from this lack of attention, this lack of love. And I'm not getting into help as a licensed psychologist because I'm not that. But what I am going to recommend is to think about ways that you can listen. Instead of blocking, instead of punishing, instead of restricting, listen to what those inner pangs are telling you when you're faced in those moments of food cravings, when you're faced with the moment of, oh, that smells like potatoes, or oh, that smells like bread, chips, whatever your vice is. Like for me, it was always potatoes, side note, but whatever your vice is, whenever you feel that urge and sensation of, oh yeah, let me just have one little, think about what this need is telling you. What is it trying to communicate to? Because you can set up these respectful inner boundaries within yourself that I've talked about in previous podcast episodes. I want to encourage you to compassionately, patiently listen and feel what this is without giving into it. And the music that I'm listening to right now is exactly what I'm going to tell you. Just breathe. Just breathe. Breathe it out. Feel the feeling without letting it, tidal waves take you over. And that seems hard for some. It may seem impossible for some. But listening to what that is communicating to you can be very powerful. And it's going to help to restore that mind-body connection. So for example, in these moments in my past that I've experienced this before, very often it's when I go grocery shopping or if I'm making or cooking food and maybe I was trying to stay in my fasting window. And I know in those moments, I'm a very smell-oriented person and maybe you are too. So I would smell whatever was cooking or fresh available around me. And I would just breathe. And I would think in my mind, yes, I am feeling, you can take this however you want, but I'm taking it in a compassionate way. Yes, I'm being triggered right now, emotionally just stimulated. I'm being kind of, bothered at this moment from this stimuli. This external stimuli is affecting me right now. What can I do about it so that future me is proud of the actions, behavior, choices, mindset, behavior, in this moment right here? I am working to stay and keep future self so proud of the choices that I make in this moment, and then in this moment, and then in this moment. And that to be okay with these imperfections that, if I just blindly kind of like blacked out and unconsciously took maybe 1 or 2 bites already without even realizing it, I just got chills. Be okay with that. This journey up, down, side to side is like a rip-roaring kind of roller coaster. And the kinder and more compassionate we can be to ourselves along the ride, the more enjoyable this ride is going to be. The better the result, the better the arrival of this destination is going to be. Because thinking about it in I'm so stupid. Oh, I did this. Oh my God, I can't believe. Oh, I just need to. Where does that get you? Like I talked about before, right? Self-deprecation is not welcome. We don't do that. You shouldn't do that either. It's kind of in the approach of, think of it as like you're kind of parenting your inner self, that giving yourself what you need in those moments without giving in, right? Ooh, just got chills. So in those moments where you are being, activated with an external stimuli, I'm getting super nerdy. You get these activation from external stimuli and you're like, oh my gosh, I could really just have that right now. I could really give into this right now. But, I need to stay into my fasting window. If you've heard me talk about my meditatively or mentally re-eating things, go check that out. I'm not going to go too much into that because I want to stay on topic here, but have that opportunity where you're mentally re-eating these foods, beverages, maybe it's alcohol, thinking about honoring what the stimuli is trying to convey to you without giving in. And that's some healthy boundaries. That is some of the healthiest boundary setting that we can do within ourselves, because once we get all the communication and coordination, everything right from within inside, it will rock your world to see and experience firsthand how this echoes and reverberates outward into the rest of your life. And yeah, the food choices like can make or break you. But as I've said so many other times, letting your focus be first and foremost on the fasting, listening to the bodily cues and signals that your body tells you is going to make it so that it's so much more simple to make those dietary modifications without feeling like it has to be, strict diet, list, regiment, measure on one end, or that unhinged child, limitless in the grocery store picking whatever they want, kind of snack fest. I don't want either of those for folks because those won't bring you success in the long term. This balanced, flexible, self-compassionate kind of mindset will every single time. So the more patience we can keep with ourselves and accepting this kind of balanced, forgiving approach, the better things can be for your journey in the long term. Because I truly believe in your ability to be successful in this journey. I will never stop sharing and saying that too, because every single person that wants it and is willing to show up and do the messy work and feel those messy feelings, to trudge through, every single person that does the work every single day consistently deserves it. And yeah, there's some folks out there that may want it, but don't want to show up for themselves or can't bring themselves to show up for themselves. And yeah, it's hard. This is some of the hardest, messiest kind of journey. And it's so much more multidimensional than many folks want to own, acknowledge, and realize. But this is where the growth happens. This is where the massive, magical kind of changes that happen internally, externally, and generationally. We're talking like the effect that it can have on those around you is so profound that it's bringing me to tears right now because I've seen it and experienced it in my life. And I've heard about others that just come to mind. So these changes start with us. And again, I tell you, stop overcomplicating this. Keep things simple. Know that you can do this. Allow for this level of self-confidence with your food choices. You know what these good food choices are. Let that take precedence instead of the limiting, restricting, or full-on binging. There is a wiggly, squishy medium that you can exist in on your journey. I'm telling you, you can. Please know that I will always cheer you on your journey. If you are in need of supportive coaching on your journey, I'm here. I care. I have a private group on Facebook called the Fasting Focused Lifestyle Support Club. I would love to see you and support you in there. We have folks from all over the world getting fasting support. I'm constantly going live in the group, giving resources, answering questions on a very regular and consistent basis. So if this is something that you could benefit from, check out my website, thefastingfocusedlifestyle.com. Links to sign up and to get into the group are there. And as soon as I see that notification, boop, pop in, I'll get you in the group because you deserve a long, quality, meaningful, full, rich life. You deserve it and you can have it because I believe in you, even if you don't. Please take care of yourself so that you can take care of each other and the rest of your life. Big virtual hug for each and every one of you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I look forward to next week's podcast episode. Take care. Bye. The Fasting Focused Lifestyle Podcast. Copyright 2024. The information given within this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult your doctor before starting any weight loss method. Thank you.